Hi, I'm Jay Thomas, and welcome to Bald Tires, a proud member of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. For our 23rd and 24th episodes, we're going right back to the beginning. My guest these next two episodes is Tim Roden, who joined me for the very first episode of Bald Tires. Today, we're going to talk about the state of affairs for the automotive industry right now, just some of the things that are going on with supply chain issues and the future of electric cars. And Tim also calls himself, along with his dad Al, tire and wheel guys. We've got some great, tire and wheel stories for you. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Lots of fun coming your way. Thanks for listening to Bald Tires, because when you make great memories, you make Bald Tires. The Saskatchewan Podcast Network is supported by Connexus. Does money spark joy in your life or cause you stress? If you said stress, you're not alone. For 42% of Canadians, their biggest stressor comes from money. At Connexus, they care about your financial well-being. Money doesn't have to be stressful, and Connexus is here to help. The Connexus #MoneyTalk blog provides expert advice, tips, and solutions for all stages of life and events. Getting married, buying a house, budgeting, saving, they cover it all and more. And did I mention it's free? Check it out today at ConnexusMoneyTalk.ca and start feeling confident and stress-free about your money. The Saskatchewan Podcast Network is also supported by Direct West. Is marketing getting in the way of running your business? Direct West has a local expert team right here in Saskatchewan that will work with you to build your website exactly how you imagine it. Let them help you improve your online presence and head to directwest.com to learn more. Hi, I'm Jay Thomas, and welcome to Bald Tires. I am in the dining room of a good friend of mine, and you know what? We're many episodes into Bald Tires now, and we're going right back to the beginning to my very first guest I had on the podcast. I'm here with my friend, Tim Roden.
Hi, Jay.
Thanks for coming on with me again, Tim. This is always fun. We've been together tonight for already an hour, and we've talked cars for an hour, and I thought we better put the microphones on and actually record some of this stuff, because we get together and we just talk cars endlessly. So I thought we'd talk about a few things in the podcast today. And, you're involved in the car community, but also the car industry right now. We're going to touch on that a little bit, about what we're seeing happening kind of with COVID and the whole world, a little bit of that. You picked up a set of really cool wheels on a trip recently that we got to talk about. And thirdly, I want to talk about road trips, because I think that you've done a lot of road trips, and I want to compare some stories about road trips. So anyways, let's start by saying that you work at a GM dealership.
I do,
yeah. And your job there is you're in charge of a lot of things, but you're also receiving all the new cars, right?
Yeah, my department receives all of the new cars. We recondition all of the used cars. I run the detail shop. We do a ton of car deliveries, car pickups. Lately, car pickups is a big deal. But yeah, basically all the reconditioning of the cars and the receiving of the new cars are all the funnest aspects of the job.
Well, and here's the thing that's making the news right now is General Motors. I mean, we know across the world right now that there are shortages of microchips, and the whole story behind that sort of goes something like this: is that when COVID hit, production was like every company was unsure what was going to happen. Right? So they all kind of at the same time sort of reduced their numbers of orders of microchips from all the factories that produce them in China and other places around the world.
Right. And
then those companies that make these microchips then didn't want to, just not make anything and not make any sales. So a lot of those supplies went to other electronic makers, right?
Right.
And to some degree they were making less as well, because as COVID was happening in China, factories were shut down for times on end and things like that. So here we are now, though, and we've got a shortage of microchips and microprocessors that control a lot of the things that happen in our cars right now. Right? GM has said to save on this, starting here now, recently, we're going to cut out some options.
I've been told that some of the options are going to be cut back, but they're going to be small things. The electric steering wheel heater, for example.
Yeah.
Memory seats, sat-nav systems, just little things like that. We've had a number of trucks come in. Instead of the loaded trucks, we're getting a lot of the Trail Boss, the step-down edition trucks.
Okay.
So this is kind of how it's working, in that there's going to be a supply. Any supply right now is a good supply, because there's such a short supply. So when it comes to options, I'm not 100% sure what the options are going to be missing, but I'm told it's going to be little things like heated steering wheels, options on the sat-nav systems, any things that use these microprocessors, right? TPMS sensors, things maybe of that nature.
That's interesting. And the other story that's kind of come out and they've told us about more recently is that, a lot of the parts doesn't matter what manufacturer, are made of aluminum, right? I mean, body panels, say for an F-150, but I mean, every engine component in every make and model is made of aluminum now. Mm-hmm. And there is due to high energy costs and pushback against coal-powered stuff, in China, there are power plants that are being shut down. So electric generation is being reduced. The byproduct of that is some of the plants and the mines that make and produce magnesium are also being shuttered at the same time. And magnesium is a key component in making aluminum alloy parts and pieces.
Right.
So there's a new frontier coming up. Yeah, we got the shortage for electronic stuff. And now we may see shortages in the coming months of just metal to build vehicles with.
Wow.
Which is going to be really interesting to see what happens. So GM did announce today, though, that, or very recently at least, that they will honor if that vehicle, that trim level was supposed to have its heated seats and heated steering wheel, that they will be retrofitted next year, that they're planning on creating a supply of the stuff, the microprocessors and all the switches and stuff they need to make it happen, that you'll be able to bring your GM vehicle back to the dealership and have it installed within a year or year and a half from now, something like that.
I'm 100% confident if GM said that.
Yeah, that was them. Yeah,
that it'll happen. Absolutely.
Another recent event that kind of transpired, so to speak, is if you've been watching any of the news lately, Western Canada is British Columbia's got a heck of a lot of water going through it right now. And, I think within the next few days, we're going to see a route actually open up. But as of the date of this recording, there is no connection by land from the port in Vancouver to the rest of Canada. You can't drive to Vancouver. The rail lines are all ruined because of the flooding and massive landslides and everything that happened throughout the mountains. I'm wondering, too, and this kind of struck me, is are we going to see a shortage or a difficulty with even parts now for existing vehicles? Because I imagine that a lot of stuff, comes from the Port of Vancouver, right? Because even AC Delco parts now, a lot of them are made in China, right? So that stuff's got to arrive by shipping container to the Port of Vancouver,
right,
and somehow get over to Western Canada and the rest of Canada, frankly, actually, right? It's either got to go by rail or by truck.
Right.
And if both of those aren't flowing and moving,
right,
there's going to be issues with that.
It's just another Tetris block kind of pulled out or put in the wrong spot,
What it all boils down to, and I kind of think about this, I'm a huge car guy. I love cars, and I love seeing, the next new model and things like that, and I've always been interested. But there's also a flip side of me, and, maybe it's, how do I describe it? Part of me, also is a little bit grossed out by the fact that people buy a new car, say, every 2 or 3 years, as if it's, garbage after 3 or 4 years, something like that. We've become a very throwaway society. Let's face it, right? Yep. I mean, that's just a fact of life. It's how things go. And for vehicles, they've gotten swept along in that, right? Vehicles are still repaired and still maintained. But man, there's a lot of vehicles that after 10 years get scrapped, whereas 50 years ago, they were on the road for 20 or 30 years before they had really worn themselves out. Or at least they were still serviceable for 20 or 30 years, right? Of course. They were built in such a way that you could service the parts, rebuild them, replace them. Whereas now, there's stuff that is so expensive to replace, it's cost prohibitive. The part is worth more than the car, right?
Right.
We know that just is natural. I'm wondering if we're going to see a positive come out of this whole scenario. So supply chain issues, maybe it's the magnesium, maybe it's the chips, maybe it's transport, all of this stuff. Do you think we're going to see a bit of a change in the mindset of buyers and owners that are going to go, well, I was going to buy a new truck this year, but old Bessie here, she still goes. And, I probably can't really find the one I want or get one. It's so hard to get one, so I'll just keep this one and keep going with it.
Right. Well, you can ask anybody who works in the service or body shop business how busy they are, and they'll say they're really busy because people are now maintaining cars, and they're going to be lasting a lot longer. I mean, people are now almost stuck. You need to maintain what you've got because the prices of new stuff is, of course, inflated due to the supply issues.
And it's inflating the prices of used things, too.
It's inflated the price of everything. Used cars are also inflated in price. And parts, of course, are starting to be inflated in price. But anyone who's ever been a maintainer of their car will not be affected whatsoever.
No.
It's the, maybe people who are just driving cars to, drive them right into the ground and then just get a new one because they're cheap are going to have to rethink their lifestyle and start maintaining the car just so it lasts a little bit longer.
I mean, I know of people who have simply sold a car because it needed new tires.
Right. Yeah.
Like after 3 years of riding the tires that came with it from the factory, it needed new tires. They didn't want to spend $1,000. In their head, this was the right move to do. And so they bought a new car. Mm-hmm. They didn't have to replace that, or they needed new brakes. They didn't want to. They bought a new car. I think that's going to change a little bit, though.
I think you're right. There's a lot of people now who are really doing a double take and saying, I think the car could last longer if you just spent a little bit on maintenance. It only takes a trip into a certified repair center or your dealership or whatever once a year to keep the car up to snuff, properly maintained. It's far easier than just buying a new car, especially in this day and age.
It's not as sexy. I mean, that's the thing. It was always cool. That was the part of it. It was kind of a keeping up with the Joneses thing for a long time, right?
Of course. Everybody wants to keep up with, especially the tech. And that's the first thing that tends to go in older cars that are even 10 years old is the tech. All of a sudden your screen doesn't work anymore. The phone, you can't connect phones up to it anymore. Something goes wrong with it and the backup camera isn't working or whatever. You don't have problems like that with say an 80s or a 70s car.
No.
But you do in modern cars. And, electronic fuel pumps and electronic everything that's, set to turn on all the lights on your dashboard. So, and that's why people typically want to get out of older cars and get into newer ones. So they just don't want to really be bothered with all of the expense and the hassle that goes into maintaining newer cars.
They don't. But maybe we will inspire people to change their thought process with this. They'll be forced to, is what I'm saying, right? They'll be forced to do it because there's really no supply of new cars, not a lot. There's no, it's very uncertain. Mm-hmm. So they might, they're going to, like you said, reconsider putting some money into it and saving it. That might create a better balance though for our world, because just using up resources to make. It's kind of funny. I find myself in a weird spot. I love new cars. I love seeing them. Of course, we think back back to the 50s, 60s, 70s. There was a new car every year. People bought them like crazy, and we're thankful that they did. Mm-hmm. But when you take a kind of a different mindset about the whole situation, it's wasteful to just throw a car away after 4 years, right?
It absolutely is. And, I would love to see it if people did that and, kind of stayed loyal to a car for 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
Which in a perfect world would be, the norm. But I don't think society is really going. I think society will do that for the next couple of years because the COVID will still remain fresh in their minds. But in the long term, I think we're going to go straight back to, getting a different car. You got to remember, cars are a lot like fashion. It changes for a reason. And that's so consumers keep consuming. So, we keep wanting to look the newest and look have the best thing out there, the newest thing at least.
Yep.
I mean, everybody loves to have a new car. Even renting one is kind of neat because you're just driving a brand new car.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, and I know that there was certainly new cars every year forever, right? There's been a new car that's been part of the process. But, I mean, you can see as a society as a whole, though, that, that washing machine that your mom and dad bought when they were first married lasted for a very long time. And now if you get like 8 or 10 years out of an appliance, it's a miracle.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that forced obsolescence or just the longevity and the lifespan of these objects that we build has just been shortened and shortened and shortened on purpose to create so we can buy more things. But I think that something like this may reset our minds a little bit with how we think about it, Well,
of course. And I think a lot of people will be like that. In the long term, who knows what's going to happen, though, in 5 years in the future with the electric revolution going on right now in the auto industry also. There's all of the manufacturers are promising multitudes of electric models coming out within the next 4 or 5 years. So that'll be the next reason why people start to replace cars, is they're going to want to start going all electric. And as governments start to choke up supplies of fuel and whatnot, it's going to be inevitable. We're going to have to do some sort of switch. People aren't going to tolerate paying $2 or $3 a liter for gasoline.
Well, they won't simply won't be able to afford it.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a coworker right now who changed jobs, didn't need the truck anymore, just was sick of paying for fuel in it, went from a Dodge Ram to a Nissan Leaf, an electric Nissan Leaf. And I think his electric bill, and he just drives to work, home, you know, grocery store, get the kids, that sort of thing. He doesn't do a lot of driving in it. But his electric bill was like $6 for the month to basically power that car.
Yeah.
By plugging it at home. $6.
Yeah.
That was the electric, you know, extra cost. And I know as more and more things change with electricity and there's a greater demand, certainly cost is going to go up for us. There's no doubt, right?
Oh, everybody's power bill is going to get really expensive.
Exactly. I mean, things will change. Let's not kid ourselves. We're not going to get 15 or 7 cents a kilowatt for forever, right? Or maybe I think it's 15 when you add up, you know, the taxes and stuff. But I mean, wow, that's super cheap compared to running a gas vehicle, right?
I would have one in a heartbeat just for running around in the city.
Yeah.
An electric car, because I've driven them. They're a lot of fun to drive. They're kind of a hoot to drive. They're you know, incredibly powerful, and they're very heavy, and they feel heavy. Even the small cars feel heavy, like a big luxury car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, well, there's two things that come to mind. First thing I think about is I panic a little bit wondering how I'm going to get gas into my old classic car. Already, the last fill up I did this year before I put it in storage, half a tank was $70 of premium gas.
Yeah.
Half a tank.
I know. That's because I spent the same money for half a tank in my car also.
And, you know, like, it's a hobby vehicle, so I don't drive it a lot, but I still probably put a tank in every couple of weeks with what, you know, we do with the sort of the car show circuit and everything like that.
Right.
Oh, man, that's, you know, it's $1.65 already. What's it going to later, you know, and this summer there's going to be another carbon tax add-on from the government coming up again, I think, this spring. So where's it going? And, so I'm sort of feel a bit panicky about that because, of course, I don't want to let it go. You know, I don't want to stop driving it. I love it too much. It's, you know, it's our hobby.
Well, you're always going to be able to buy gas, you know, for the foreseeable future. Yes, because the distances that people who live in areas of Canada especially have to travel. I can see most households having 2 cars, one electric, one gas. The gas car will simply be for traveling out of town. You want to make a trip to Calgary or whatever. Yes, you can do it in an electric car, but it's extremely inconvenient having to stop every 3 hours for 2 hours to charge it up.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So so that's the day when all electric replaces gas is a long, long ways away, and a lot can happen between now and then.
That's true. That's true. The other thing we were talking about, though, before we got going here, what's interesting is there are now companies, and you brought up Ford as one of them, that you can buy a drop-in electric motor.
Yeah, well, I saw that that was part of the SEMA show. I saw it online. They had converted a Ford F-150, a 78 or a 77 Ford F-150 to an all-electric, and they used these do-it-yourself drop-in electric engines. So that, I mean, a do-it-yourselfer's got to know an awful lot to convert an old car to an electric car. But apparently Ford says it's entirely possible.
Yeah.
And just wait. I mean, the king of crate engines has always been GM.
Yep.
And they will have something guaranteed right around the corner.
And there's a company in the States, and I can't remember their name, but they are making, again, drop-in electric motors, but they're retrofitted to look like your gas engine and then hook up to your transmission. So it's not you got to redo your whole drivetrain. It's simply yard out your V8, drop this electric motor that looks like a V8. It's got, chrome valve covers, and it's shaped in the shape of a V8, and it's got engine mounts that belong in the right spot.
Right.
And it hooks up to your turbo hydromatic 400 or, Ford
very, very cool stuff is kind of coming out when it comes to the electric car, and retrofitting of virtually any car is going to get, in my opinion, I think it's going to get really simple and fairly cheap. It's apparently costs about 30 or 40 grand to retrofit any car to electric.
Yeah.
And compare that to the 60 or 70 grand for a new electric car. It's going to be cheaper if they made it cheaper to retrofit your old road car into an electric.
Yeah.
Like Back to the Future Part 2.
That's right. Retrofitting your car to fly.
Oh, sure. Hover cars. Who wouldn't want a hover car?
Convert your old gas car to a hover car. That's right.
Absolutely. I would do it.
That's a great movie. I just thought of that now you mentioned it too. It's going to be fascinating to watch the industry and watch what happens in the next few years. And like you said, they're all making strides, and a lot of companies have made commitments to go 100% electric by a certain date too. Mm-hmm. They've got that in there, I know there's going to be some die-hard gas fans and, internal combustion fans, though they're going to be pretty upset with that.
Well, again, I don't see internal combustion going anywhere anytime soon.
No.
This is all years and years and years into the future. And, the further you get into the future, the more you're able to kind of recognize the pros and cons of everything. Like I say, I've now driven a number of different models of electric cars, and they're very, very cool. They're extremely different to drive, of course, but, they're very, very neat. And just for running around in the city, yeah, they're great.
So I've driven a few electric ones. I think most recently was a Hyundai Tucson SUV, all electric. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's just an electrified version of the gas powered car that they make otherwise, but it was really cool. And the only thing I didn't appreciate about it is they took an all-wheel drive SUV, and the electric version is only front-wheel drive.
Okay.
There are some manufacturers who are changing that. They're making all-wheel drive, and they're putting a motor in the front and motor in the back. Mm-hmm. But that Hyundai, you know what? Like, burnouts on demand.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm serious. Take the traction control button off, just stab the throttle, and it would just light the tires up on dry pavement.
Instant torque.
It would, squeal.
Yeah.
It was, and it really moved. Like, it's a cool feeling. It's a little weird, just no engine noise, and it just kind of makes this noise, as you kind of get going.
That's the hardest thing to get used to, for sure.
But the thrust and the torque is just so satisfying.
It is.
What have you driven?
I've driven the Chevy Bolt.
Yep.
And it's a small car. We just have a new model out, and I had one. I just kind of zipped around the lot with it. And it was a Chevy Bolt EUV. So slightly bigger, more SUV-ish than a Chevy Bolt. But the kind of the neat things about electric cars is when you get into the car cold, for example, and you turn the heater on, it blows hot. You don't have to wait for the engine to heat up. It blows hot right away. It's instant hot air. And again, like the sensation on the freeway, you can pretty much drive the car just with the cruise control buttons on the freeway. Mm-hmm. You can adjust the speed because it's so instantaneous. It's just a very, very different sensation. When you're on the road with an electric car also, it feels exactly like a gas car because you still have all the road noise of the tires humming on the road and the wind whooshing by and everything else too. So it feels quite normal and quite natural. So it's, but they do have the large screen also in them, and I think that'll be the next big trend is the big Tesla-esque screens in these cars also. So I drove a Tesla Model Y, and
did you?
Again, just kind of moving one on the lot, and very different. You get in, there's no start-stop button in it. The key is a credit card. And you simply put the key in a little slot and the car is totally active. No on-off button. You just put your foot on the brake and click D for drive and up for reverse and press a button for park.
Really?
Otherwise, the whole thing is just active. And there's only one screen in the very center of the dash.
That's right. Yeah.
It displays everything. It displays everything. There's a big map, all of your HVAC. Speedometer, everything. Speedometer is just two little digits in the top corner.
I guess, hey?
Yeah. As soon as you get used to it, though, it's kind of like driving an iPad.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, think what you will about the Tesla company. There's people who've got opinions about the company. One thing that probably Elon Musk did very right, in my opinion, was to create sort of electric supercars first. And what I mean by that is, I think, you just said it. It's very much like driving an iPad. I think people are worried, especially in the car enthusiast world, that a new electric car will be so boring I'll want to kill myself. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it'll have no feedback. It'll be dull. It'll be just, like riding the kiddie rides at the amusement park. Just terrible. But Tesla set out and created these cars that are, well, some of the fastest production vehicles in the world. Right. They're setting, acceleration records. They're beating supercars off the line on a drag strip. That sort of stuff. I think what that's done is just created a bit of a, pardon the pun, but a bit of a spark, a bit of a sparkle around the whole idea of an electric car, that it doesn't have to be boring and drab. And, like there are certainly ones that are going to come out that are going to suck. They're going to be like driving a toaster, right? Yep. They are. But it at least started with, at least there's some hope, some glimmer out there that it doesn't always have to be like that, even if it's electric.
Oh, well, I've got a lot of hope for electric cars. I think as electric cars become more and more efficient, you're going to see a greater sense of style come back to the auto industry also, because everyone's going to have electric cars. They're all going to be super efficient. And you have to remember back to the 1950s when there were so many car companies out there selling cars that were very well built, extremely efficient. They were already, a great, everybody kind of made a great car. But people started buying cars based on style and how comfortable the seats were and how easy they were to drive. And that's, I believe, is going to translate into the future electric cars also. And the other thing, too, is the bigger the car, the more battery capacity you're going to have and the further it's going to go. So I think you're going to see larger electric cars coming out. They're not all going to be small, dumpy looking little toasters, right? You're going to see a lot more of the Tesla Model S, incredible car.
Yeah, and some more full-size SUVs, I'm assuming, too, we'll see.
Oh, for sure.
Because let's face it, the SUV is not going anywhere anytime soon yet, right? I mean, that trend is still riding high.
People want to still haul the family around.
That's right. That's right. Another thing I was thinking of, too, with the whole electric car world that's coming, is that battery technology is going to change quick. And so we're kind of talking, we were saying about, taking a road trip. You think people will have a car that, is gas, 1 to 2 long hauls, one that's electric for kind of driving around the city. And I think, too, that we'll see probably the biggest change. Like, certainly we're seeing it now. It's not uncommon to drive by an electric car now on the road. In fact, me driving home tonight, I'll probably see one. I very well likely could. When we'll see the biggest changes when the battery technology catches up, that you can charge an electric car in about the same time you can gas up a gas vehicle. Mm-hmm. When you can stop, plug the thing in, go have a bathroom break, pick up your bag of Doritos, come back, and the thing is charged.
Right.
That'll be it.
I'm quite surprised right now that I maybe shouldn't be surprised, but I wonder why the auto industry hasn't gone with adapting a battery that fits all cars, and then being able to drive your electric car to a gas station and simply swap the battery packs out in the same time it would take you to top up your coffee and get a bag of Doritos.
Yeah.
Right?
There's been theories, or there's been speculation about that. I've read articles about, Tesla was playing with that idea in the beginning. And I don't never heard why they chose not to go with it, but you're right. It would be, I think they're just counting on the technology catching up first. Right. Rather than having to physically swap batteries. Because like I say, if you can stop, charge a car in the same time it takes to fill up for gas, and even if you only have a 400 kilometer range, let's call it that. My gas car doesn't go any farther than 400 kilometers in a tank of gas.
Right.
But there's a gas station every 400 kilometers or less, right?
Exactly.
Well, if there's a power charging station every 400 kilometers or less, and it takes you 6 minutes to charge the battery, what's the difference?
Oh, exactly.
Our life is exactly the same, right?
Right.
I know we're not there yet, but there are already cars that are coming out that have 20 and 30-minute charging times to hit 80%.
Sure, yeah.
That's already a known fact. Tesla's, in fact, one of them that's getting those kind of numbers with the high-capacity charging. So even 20 minutes isn't that bad.
20 minutes isn't that bad. And they're slowly bringing that convenience to customers, because customers want comfort, they want convenience, and they want affordability, with anything. You know, a lot of people care about the environment, but you know, deep down inside, they're going to get what's convenient and comfortable first,
Yes,
right?
that's right.
So that's just human nature.
It is, totally.
So if you can bring that kind of convenience and affordability down to where gas cars are now, you'll start selling as many electric cars. You know, if you can provide them, if they can keep up with the demand.
Yes.
I think they will. And you know, the whole crux of the thing is to get the majority of our urban centers, big cities, Toronto and Calgary, even Saskatoon and Regina, if you had 60% of those people just running around in those cities driving electric cars, then all of a sudden that carbon that they keep talking about is going to come way down.
That's right.
Nothing produces more carbon than burning coal and fuel, right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, that's just a plain fact. I think, too, that the naysayers quickly here will also experience or be educated at least a little bit in some of the things they're pushing back on. And like one of them is, well, that thing's going to be so cold in the winter. You know, how is it going to survive? That sort of thing. Like you said, you hop into them, they have instant heat.
Right.
In fact, it's better in a gas car in some ways because most of them have an app on your phone. You're going to leave in 20 minutes. You preheat the car, as in starting in the same kind of technology you do a remote start with, except that the car doesn't take 15 minutes to warm up and then create heat. It just warms up for 15 minutes. You step outside, you got a toasty warm car to get into, or a cool car in the summer. The air conditioning comes on, you know. Like it's even smarter than that.
Exactly, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there are limitations with batteries and cold. The thing is, you know what? You and I, when it's minus 30, we plug our cars in.
Yeah.
Right? We plug our gas cars in so they'll actually start.
Right.
Well, what's the difference if you plug your electric car in just to keep it charged?
Well, most cars, I mean, even the worst electric cars in bitter cold will have maybe 150 or 200 kilometer range. And who's going to drive 200 kilometers in the city in one day unless you're a delivery driver? Most average people in Saskatoon, I know, probably don't go more than 60.
Yeah.
50 or 60
that would
kilometers.
be pushing
I know
it.
I live across the city and it's, 9 or 10 kilometers to work, right? So I might put on 20 or 30 kilometers.
Even a commute from the suburbs is only 20 kilometers.
Yeah, you might only
One
have
way.
to charge the car once a week.
Yep. So, I mean, it's not going to answer every problem yet. It's not solved.
Oh, of course
you know?
not. Yeah.
But I think we're in the same camp that, you know, this is headed in the right direction and it's going to be interesting.
It's just neat. It's neat technology, and it's going to be really neat to see the future of cars. And, you know, gas cars, I think, are going to stick around also because there's going to be the people who just want and prefer a gas car.
Mm-hmm.
And our gas SUV, pickup trucks especially. But you know what? Like I say, the larger they are, the more battery capacity. And, you know, I can't wait to see the new F-150 Lightning.
Yeah.
The Chevrolet is going to have electric pickup trucks also. So it's going to be cool, and they're going to look really neat because they're going to really want to entice buyers.
I think people, the public or a lot of the pushback, they're not thinking of it like this. And you just summed it up, is that they're sort of thinking of an all or nothing. But the two can coexist.
The two will coexist.
For a long time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, they're going to serve different purposes, but they'll coexist. They're going to be people who don't ever travel much out of the city, so they can have an electric car their whole life because they never travel out, you know, on the country roads.
The whole gasoline infrastructure is all pre-existing also. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just not going to change. Not to mention, I mean, all it takes is a couple of elections in North America to, you know, sort of put some sort of brake on the really hard push towards, say, electric cars or whatever, and the stifling of our fuel markets. So
yeah, and the crazy high fuel prices as a result, right?
well,
and that's the
yeah,
thing.
that's all going to get voted out, and more normalcy will come into the political side of the supply of oil and gas.
I think so.
I mean,
yeah.
it has to, and it will.
Well, it'll break the economy if it doesn't, and that's what will force it over, right?
That's exactly what'll force it over.
Yeah,
for sure.
Totally.
So, yeah.
Hey, let's switch gears. Pardon the car pun. I wanted to talk about a really cool set of wheels that you picked up recently. So we're gonna dive back into the classic car world. Now, your dad, Al, I think maybe I'm right in saying this, has probably played a big influential part of you being a car guy.
Oh, he has, absolutely.
You know, like he had some cool cars when you were a kid growing up. You know, You had obviously had a bunch of really sweet cars. We talked about that in our first episode.
Yeah.
But you've called your dad a tire and wheel guy.
He is an essential tire and wheel guy. Dad's cars always had clean wheels and clean tires, and the shinier and the brighter, the better, as far as Dad was concerned. And every car my dad owned, as far as I'm concerned, even his company cars were cool because he just kept them so clean.
You guys have a saying, poverty caps,
Yeah.
because I think your dad probably called them that for years, hey?
Yeah.
Regular old hubcaps were just poverty caps because they weren't good enough. They weren't real wheels.
For sure. Maybe that's my kind of affliction or sickness when it comes to wheels and collecting wheels. So I've got wheels I don't even have cars for.
Well, I love walking around at a car show with Al, and he'll go, "Oh, that's nice. It's got the wrong wheels and tires on it, though."
Yep.
He'll just throw that out there.
The tires are too small. The tires are too big. The tires are dirty. There's no white wall. So
all that.
Dad knows his wheels, and that's the first thing he'll notice on a car. That's the first thing I've always noticed on a car too, is wheels. And that's maybe what made me a success in the detailing business is, man, the wheels have got to be clean.
Yeah, they do. They really do. So you went out to, was it Calgary recently or Edmonton?
I was just in Calgary. Yeah.
Calgary.
Yeah.
Tell me about the set of wheels you found.
Well, I found a set of appliance wire wheels for Cadillacs. They made them for 10 years. They were a very expensive option. And there's very few of them running around with these wheels on them. And I happen to find a set that are new. I think they were on the car for 1 year. And the fella I bought them from said his wife in the first year had rubbed a curb with one of the wheels, and he went to replace it. And it was $1,500 for the one wheel.
In 1980 whatever.
1988. And
oh my gosh.
So he replaced the entire wheel set with standard wheels and hubcaps, took the wheels off, sprayed them off, and left them in his garage for 30 years. And then I bought them. So
now he figured, in your conversation, he sort of said that when he went to the dealership to buy that wheel, he was shocked at the price because he said, quotes, "Well, I only paid $2,000 for the set when they came with the car."
Well, as an option.
As an option.
Yeah.
Right? And then he was, mortified that it was $1,500 for just one.
For the one wheel.
And buying it from the parts counter, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking and saying this to you earlier, $2,000 in 1980 whatever, 87, 86. That was a lot of money for an option.
Oh, sure it was. Sure, that was a lot of money.
I mean, you could buy a really basic new car for just a little bit more than that, and certainly a really good used car for $2,000 in the mid 80s, right? And like just $2,000 for a set of wheels for your car would seem extraordinary now. I mean, now that would be, I think, the equivalent of somebody saying, buy the new Cadillac. If you want those wheels, it's $10,000.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
$10,000?
Well, that's crazy. That's just what he told me.
Yeah.
So I've never looked up exactly what the option was on an 88 Cadillac Brougham, but in 1988, cars, I figure that car likely cost about $30,000 when it was new.
Holy.
So I'm just going based on, I had a 83 Buick Riviera, which would have been kind of a similar priced car.
Sure.
And that was $27,000. And I had the bill of sale for that one when it was new.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. So it was an expensive car when it was new.
Like that is intergalactic price at that time in history for a vehicle. Now, that's a Honda Civic.
Yeah, exactly.
It's $27,000 or $30,000, no problem.
Right.
I mean, that's where we are in the world. But then
$27,000 in 1983 inflated to 2021 prices is, how much? I know it's going to be a lot.
Well, I'm sure that's over $80,000 what that car would cost now. Like if you went in to buy a new Cadillac, right? You went in to buy a new Cadillac, ATS or CTS,
Yeah.
I'm sure they're $80,000 or
Well,
more.
Compare it to my 83 Delta 88, which I also have the new bill of sale, and that was $16,500, which is a little more realistic for a new 83 car. So $10,000 more money for that Riviera.
It's really amazing how well Cadillac did in the 80s, at that time, selling this stuff considering how expensive it was.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, Cadillacs of the 80s are not really known for reliability or powerful engines.
No.
The biggest cars were all choked up and detuned with, small, funny engines that were all guinea pigs for GM, the digital fuel injection and, those 4.1 liter engines, they're not bad engines, but it's way underpowered.
Yeah.
I had an 82 Fleetwood Brougham, and they're no fun to drive at all. They're just dead, gutless dogs. They run good. Hey, it got 25 miles per gallon.
Dead, gutless dogs. That's going to be the title for our podcast.
I'd love to get one of those and do an LS swap.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Like a decent, just a 5.3 liter, anything reliable with lots of jam and power. And
Light up the tires on a Cadillac.
yeah,
So-
make it a sleeper.
So you've got this set of wheels. And you know what's funny? Because you text me when you were looking at them. And I said to you, buy them. Because it's going to be easier to find a car for those wheels than it will be to find those wheels again for a car you have.
Oh, well, I had 2 Fleetwood Brahms and looked for 10 years to find a set of wheels like this.
Exactly.
And now I have no Fleet. It's easier to find the Fleetwood Brougham than it is to find the wheels.
Exactly. But that's not the only set of wheels you got in the basement, right?
Oh, no, I've got several sets of wheels.
Okay, so
in the basement.
take me through them.
Oh, well, I've got 2 separate sets of wheels for Lincolns because just like you, I'm a big collector of luxury cars. And I've got some solid aluminum dish wheels that were an option for Lincoln Continentals. I've got those in the basement all polished up. I actually had them on a Lincoln of mine that I sold, and the fella I sold it to didn't want the wheels. I've got a set of turbine wheels from a Cartier Designer Series Continental Mark V. I've got a set of 14-inch Oldsmobile G-body. If anybody who owns a G-body out there wants a really nice set of stock chrome, and they're new with new caps.
They're new.
Yep, 14-inch, and they're chrome. Yeah, Super Stock 2, I think they're called.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so
So here's my wheel and tire story. It's not nearly as cool as yours. When I got going in the broadcast industry, my previous industry that I was part of, I started in Prince Albert. Mm-hmm. And I moved up there. I had just bought a brand new Ford Focus ST.
ooh,
Okay, 2006. It was kind of not as cool as the SVT that came before it, and certainly not as cool as the real STs that showed up from Europe after it. But it was a little red 4-door sedan, but it had a bigger engine. They deleted the muffler. Ford just deleted the muffler right off the car and had the resonator and the catalytic converters, and that was it, straight out the back. Special suspension, special brakes, different transmission. It was a pretty cool, unique little car.
yeah.
And I loved it. But I moved to Prince Albert to start my career and didn't get paid near enough to be able to afford
Oh no,
$500 in rent for my apartment
Yeah.
and the new car. So I sold it to a friend of mine. And, okay, I need a set of wheels. And in the meantime, I wanted to buy a ring to be able to get married. So then I really couldn't afford the car. And the payment was so cheap, it's laughable now.
Yeah.
Like $250 a month. My God, I wish I could get it back.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I think I was walking through the mall, and there was one of those poster boards, and this is 15 years ago. They used to post cars for sale. This is sort of before Kijiji wasn't really a thing yet.
Yep.
You still went by classified ads in the paper or in the Auto Trader and stuff like that. And so there was a kind of a poster board for the classified ads from the PA Leader or whatever it is, the paper is there. Times Herald, Daily Herald, whatever. And there was a few cars and kind of looking. And then one caught my eye, and it was a 93 Ford Tempo Coupe.
Okay.
5-speed. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I called and it was kind of in my budget, so I called the guy up. Certainly not a new car. It was already definitely 10, 12, 15 years old at the time.
Right. Yeah.
But it looked really good in the pictures. So I called the guy up and said, hey, can I have a look at it? And, this and that. So I went over to his house, and turns out he was like a roommate of my dad's from university.
Oh, wow. No, you have to buy it.
Didn't even know who it was until we got there, And then they made this connection, figured it out. And he had an Escort for sale, a newer Escort, and then this Tempo. But the Escort was an automatic. And I like manuals for little cars. I just do.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So, and the Escort was an automatic with air conditioning. The Tempo, had AC, no cruise control, but it had a 5-speed manual.
Yeah.
And it was this sort of medium metallic blue, sky blue-ish color, and amazing shape. And the guy I'm buying it from is a mechanic at Lakeland Ford.
Okay.
So I'm thinking like, okay, well taken care of. He bought it brand new from the dealership, had it its entire life. It had, new brakes and some new rear struts put into it and a little bit of work here and there. And just like I don't think anybody ever rode in the back seat. I think he just drove it to work and drove it home. And then that was his just run around little car and a little 2.3 4-cylinder in it. Anyways, I'm getting to the point that had these alloy wheels on it. And if you can believe it or not, there is an online Tempo Topaz forum group community, and they're absolutely nuts. What I mean is there's somebody wrote up an article that's based in this website, and it gives every single option and detail as if it was a Ferrari.
Right.
Like they've got, you can look up year by year and the color specs and like just everything.
Wow.
And so then there's this brochure or this picture of all the different wheels you could get with the car. And so I'm kind of looking, and the guy who sold me the car said, "Hey, by the way, if you ever think about it, I know a guy with another set of wheels for this thing." I thought, yeah, I'd like a set of wheels for some winter tires, And I'm just thinking, oh, he's got a set that's out in the shed or something, off of a Tempo. So I get a hold of this other guy, and I show up to his place in Prince Albert in his garage, and off the shelf he pulls 4 Ford boxes. 3 of them have never been opened.
Oh, no way.
And so literally they were the matching alloy wheels that were already on the car, but they had been on the car all seasons, for its entire life. So the alloy wheels starting to get pitted and kind of.
Oh, of course, yeah.
The car
typical wear and tear, yeah.
The car looked great, but the alloy wheels, Ford's alloy wheels in the 80s and 90s didn't survive very well. No. That's just a fact.
That's right.
And so he pulls them down, and I think I got them for $100 each, which was a lot of money for me at the time.
Yeah.
But one box had been opened to check it was the right wheel. The other 3 had never been opened from the factory.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So I bought them and swapped the tires and had my summer tires on those. And damn it, about 5 months later, I was coming up through PA. 16-year-old girl with her friends turned left right in front of me, and I T-boned her and wrote the car off.
No way. Did you save the wheels?
I did, yes.
Excellent.
I did. I did sell them since, though, because I just knew I was never going to have another Ford Tempo. It was like a 1 in a million thing, but.
Oh, for sure. Well, there's not, I'd love to see a nice original Ford Tempo. I haven't seen one in so long.
Yep.
Those were everywhere in the 80s and 90s.
They were.
Yeah.
They were. And in fact, I came home from the hospital in an 86 Ford or 86 Mercury Topaz.
Okay, yeah.
GS Sport, and it had a European package on it, and it had metric tires.
Holy
Do you remember when there was
Yes.
a time Ford and I think a few other manufacturers did this, where they brought these metric sizes in?
Yep.
Not our standard 195 65 R14s,
Yep.
but a weird metric. And there were these alloys with these crisscrossed lines through them. They were really, really cool looking wheels.
Oh, yeah. Very 80s. I remember those.
Very 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, very square lines through them.
Yep.
And you couldn't get anything but high performance summer tires for that car that would fit that size.
Yeah.
And so I think we drove it for a few years, and finally my mom was so mad about getting stuck all the time with these summer tires on the car.
Oh,
that
no.
my dad and I drove out to like Amigo's Auto Wrecker, and there was a Topaz up on its roof, and we took all 4 of its ugly alloy wheels off.
Yeah.
Had all season tires, and it was like, oh, the Topaz doesn't look nearly as good with these,
Wow.
tires, and wheels. But
Just the fact that you were brought home from the hospital in a Mercury Topaz as compared to a Tempo means you're going to live an extra 10 years.
that's funny. It's funny how the cars we grew up in influence us a lot. I think.
Yeah.
I love Hondas. My grandpa always had a Honda, still does to this day, and that's made me a big fan. I had Fords for a long time because my parents always had a Ford.
Right. So did mine.
They had that Mercury Topaz. That was their first Ford, and then my mom just always found the seats in a Ford comfortable, so we had a pair of Taurus wagons, and there was a Ford Escape, and so it's funny. And same thing with you, right?
Oh, same thing with me. Yeah. Well, you know Dad's Galaxy. I was brought home from the hospital in a 1964 Ford Galaxy.
Yep.
Convertible, light blue with a white top, and Dad currently has the same car, but it's a two-door hardtop, but it's the same color.
Yeah, that's right.
Just had to have it. And then his cars, well, of course, he's had a number of great cars, a 57 Chev and a 62 Chev. And he can tell you all the stories of his cars. But the cars I remember most, of course, are that Ford Galaxy, because I was a wee little guy when he sold it. I would have been about 5. And he sold it and got a station wagon. And I loved that station wagon. It was a 70 Pontiac Safari. And the rear seats folded up. So there was a seat that folded up that faced backwards.
Yeah, yes.
And when I was 5 and 6, I could crawl in between the 2 rear seats. And it was a perfect little cubby hole. And it was a perfect place to stretch out and sleep. And Dad will tell you I slept countless hours just in the back of that car and was a perfect travel companion.
Was that a clamshell wagon, one of those?
No, it was not.
Just before that, right?
It was just before the clamshell wagons. It was a 70. And it was green, and I can't really tell you too many details of it because I was so young.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember the next car, and I didn't like the next car, and it was a Ford Country Squire wagon. And
wood panel?
It was yellow with wood panels, but it had the seats in the back that folded up on either side. So there was no nook to go and curl up and hide in. So you couldn't go and hide back there at all. So I don't know. It was still a cool car, and I see pictures of it, and of course would love to own something like that again someday. Even a station wagon.
Oh, the wagons are making a big comeback. They really are.
Are they ever? Yeah.
And for the first time a couple of years ago, I actually saw a GM clamshell wagon in action. Stick the key in the right hand side of the tailgate of the right fender.
Yeah.
It depends on which way you turn it, right? And the glass goes up into the roof. The tailgate sucks down into the floor.
Oh, amazing!
That's incredible.
Yeah, amazing.
I'm surprised they haven't repeated that.
Well, it seems to me a lot of those cars had issues and problems with those motors and stuff, especially in the winter. The motor would freeze and the window wouldn't close all the way. And then you had a half-open window and a half-open clamshell and a freezing cold car in the winter and expensive repair bill. And it's any wonder why those were all used up in demolition derbies of all things, So, but it was really cool. And, the odd one that's still kicking around is very, very popular at any kind of a car show. I mean, I can watch those clams open and close all day long. I remember being mesmerized as a kid. Our neighbors had one. We could just stood there in awe. It was like the future. It was like Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's watching a robot in action, basically.
And that was an Oldsmobile custom cruiser, and it had square headlights in the front, too.
Oh, yeah.
First time I ever saw square headlights.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Because those were allowed, 1970... There was a date for that, right?
Well, their car was a 76, and it was an Oldsmobile, and it was a clamshell wagon. I believe that might have been the only year of the clamshell wagon Oldsmobile that had square headlights in it.
Could be.
Very, very cool.
I think that was just about the time, though, that the square sealed beam headlights came out, right?
76, 77.
Somewhere in there.
Some 75 luxury cars had square headlights already. 75 Cadillacs all had square headlights.
They were probably just the first to get it allowed by the government.
Oh, yeah. Well, especially in the U.S., they have so many different state laws and stuff, and did in the 70s. If you go back to the 50s, some 57 cars have dual headlights in the front, and some have just the single ones.
That's right, yeah.
Because they weren't allowed yet in certain states, so they had to make just the single headlight still.
You know what, Tim? We're going to leave things right there for right now. Next time we get together, let's talk about some road trips. How does that sound? Thanks for listening to Bald Tires, because when you make great memories, you make Bald Tires.